Hi, my name is Catherine Berlinger. I'm going to talk to you about planning and teaching a learning session using the BOPPS model. I found the BOPPS model to be really useful when I'm designing a lesson or when I'm delivering a lesson. If I have it in the back of my mind, I can cross-check, have I got all the elements I would need to make a lesson that helps me meet my objectives, is relevant for learners, and meets a lot of different styles that I might find in a diverse classroom. The BOPPS model was devised by the Instructional Skills Workshop people in Western Canada, and you can Google BOPPS and ISW and find lots more information about this model. I was introduced to it about 10 years ago, and I found it really helpful in designing solid lessons. It's not something that has to be followed rigidly. You can reorder the elements and you can combine some of them, and I've even broken it down more than the original BOPPS because that's been helpful to me in planning lessons that move over a 2-hour span or a 3-hour span. So I'm going to go through each area turn by turn, but it starts off with a bridge into the lesson, giving the students the objectives, doing a pre-assessment to find out where they're at, delivering a presentation, providing practice and participation, doing a post-assessment, and finally summarizing the learning for the day. If you prefer to look at things in broader categories, these can be collapsed into an introduction to the lesson, core delivery of the lesson, and confirmation of the lesson for the students. Those are the three key elements of a BOPPS lesson: an introduction, core, and confirmation. In my experience, the introductory part of the lesson is crucial. If I don't get buy-in from the students, if they don't know what's in it for them and how what I'm going to do that day will tie into their learning and evaluation for the course, and even probably more importantly, their future work and lives, they may lose interest before I've even gotten started. So the introduction includes the bridge-in, the objectives, and the pre-assessment, and it's really important that it go well. So with the bridge-in, I try and find something that's a little bit interesting that will build their interest, remind them of the positive relationships in the class, and set the tone for the entire lesson. Sometimes I'll use a video clip, a case study, a quotation, a professional problem needing to be solved. Sometimes I'll have a student role play with me or another student a problem in the career area and get them started with something that's visually, kinesthetically, and auditorily interesting. And then I will focus our attention on what the lesson's about and what I want to achieve. I'll use the words learning outcomes from the course outline, even the same terminology and objectives, and that ties it into what I'm responsible for doing and also how the students will be assessing me on the student assessment of teaching. So I like to use the same terminology in class that they'll see there. And then I want to check out their prior learning. What do people know about this particular topic? After 23 years of teaching, I can almost guess what the assorted class will know, but it's really important that I show them that I'm interested in what they know. And more in recent years, I've tried to tie the way I ask those initial questions into the type of evaluation questions that I'll use for that particular class. So if they're going to be having some multiple choice or short answer, I'll have shows of hands. If they're going to be having to discuss or debate something, I'll have more critical thinking questions to see what I can find out about what they already know and are interested in. I need to observe the class's current knowledge base as they attempt the pre-assessment because I want to tie their prior knowledge to the new learning. So the middle part of the lesson is the core, and it's this part of the lesson that, if you're not careful, can take up the entire time that you have with the students. And I'm probably one of the people who needs BOPPS the most because I actually love to give presentations, and I love to talk, and I love to get excited about my subject matter. And if I don't have a BOPPS format, I tend to keep going on for too long. So the BOPPS model tells me that in the core, I do have a chance to serve as subject matter expert. I can shine, but I need to limit that amount of time. And so I present new information to the class in a mini presentation for about 8 to 15 minutes. Especially at the beginning of the semester, I try not to make it go on too long. And then as the class proceeds, I sometimes lengthen the amount of the presentation. And during this time, I'm asking the students to be taking notes, to be focused on what I'm saying, and to be attending. And at this point in time, I'm talking, and they're fairly quiet unless there are questions. And I supplement this more traditional lecture with demonstrations related to the content. So I may break out in the middle and go to the board and do some demonstrations of material, or have that at the beginning and the end as well. And then I need to let the students work with the material. So I've talked for 15 minutes. Now I need to give them at least 15 minutes to manipulate some aspects of the concept, to practice the skill. And sometimes I'll use role plays. They'll be doing drills, discussion in groups, etc. And I'll be circulating. And this is really important for us as teachers too, not to be on the whole time of the lesson. So during this time I can quietly circulate, get to know people better. I'm resting my voice from projecting across the room and having a chance to interact in a different way. And I need to make sure that whatever they're doing in this time is somewhat similar to how they're going to be assessed in the end. For example, if students are always engaged in debate and conversation during these classroom episodes, but the final exam doesn't allow any of that type of manipulation of the material, then it's not really a good practice for them for the assessment. One of those two things should change so that there's integrity. And I also want to make sure that the practice is at least as hard as it will be on the assessment, so that the students aren't surprised by how the material shows up in the end. And so the other thing I want to do in the core section is to have student participation, to make it clear that the students' voices are heard. And you'll notice I already did that in the introduction, and that's something that I usually weave throughout and make sure that I have that. So the learners are taking action themselves, they're interacting with each other and with me, reflecting on the material and engaging in questions and answering so that they have a chance to be heard and I have a chance to hear them. So we've been through the introduction. The students have gotten excited about the content matter. They understand how it's going to impact on their lives. They've connected it with their pasts and their futures. We've gone through the core area where they've learned new information and manipulated it and shared it with each other. And then the final section of the BOPPS lesson plan is the confirmation section. And this is where it's really important to leave a few minutes at the end of class. And I usually have a student give me a 3-minute warning so that I can make sure that we've reflected and evaluated at least briefly what's gone on in the class. We need to sum up the learning. I need the class to look forward to how it ties into the next section, anything they have to do for homework, and remind them again about the importance of what we've shared that day to their future professional work. And then they go off. I'm anticipating coming back the next time to learn a little bit more about this topic. So the BOPPS lesson plan format encourages you, or almost forces you if you follow it, to make sure that you have a bridge into the lesson, that the objectives are clear to the students, that you have pre-assessed their level of knowledge and let them see that you're interested in what they're bringing to the table, that you've given them a presentation of subject matter knowledge, because that's what they rely on us for, to be the experts in the field, bringing them information. We provided them with a chance to practice in a way that will prepare them for the assessments in the course. They've been able to participate in the lesson. I've done a post-assessment to check that things were as successful as I had hoped they would be, and I can readjust the next lesson if I see that there's something that still needs to be worked on more. And I've summarized the lesson so that students go home or go to their next class realizing that we had an incredibly good learning opportunity together that will be helpful for them in the future.